What's happening, y'all? Rooster McNuggets, and it's a beautiful day in the bay. You know, I'm coming across the bridge right now and sitting in this traffic, so I figured I'd shoot some real ones at you. So one of the things that I've been musing on and thinking about is dark magic, and in specifically how people are bound through spells, and we do this through words and contracts, and there's so much power that lies behind that we don't give it much thought. So I was just gonna take a second here to kind of paint a broad outline of how our society works today, and basically how it pimps the fuck out of us through these spells. And so, well, spells are ideas, and they're just ways that we think about ourselves, and so as we are on this process of waking up, what we're doing is letting go of the casings of who we thought we were, so that we can have a dynamic relationship with who we are. And so, as it's something that's instantaneous, because it's always present, it's always now, we find that we fall off, and in that dynamic, or miss the mark, and we'll reassess, and then we'll see, and we'll let that go, and so we'll move back to source. That becomes a process. And so that's the awakening. So as we're going through this process of awakening to what we're not, then there are, there's spells like COVID, right? COVID was a way of, so when you're invested, you can't see the other side, basically. And so that's how this all works. But when you've been told these stories, and that's what you think to be true, so like you're a hardcore materialist, then you're not going to be able to entertain certain ideas because it's outside of your frame of reference. It's foreign to you, and therefore it's stupid. Well, not that you might entertain it, but if it's completely contrary to your fundamental worldview, then it's very unlikely that you're going to look at those things, unless that is part of your fundamental worldview. And when we embrace the cross, that's exactly what is going on there, is that we understand that that's the process. And so anytime something pops up that is like, we feel very staunchly about one way, as a spiritual being, we have to go, wait, let me see what's on the other side of that spectrum, because it's all balance, it's all one, and we're synthesizing these dynamics. So, but how does that work out in our society when, so one way to see that is to see it like in our music industry, right? And so I'm an artist, and I've written I've done a lot of music, and not as much as some other people. I'd love to do more. But artists typically are people that are riding on the fringes of society, and they're sensitive to certain patterns, right? And so, and they're trying to because they're sensitive to those patterns, then they're able to take them in and then interpret them in a way. Now, and then use those emotions, that understanding of what's pulling on them to reach their audience. Now, often it's an unconscious process, and we're just fish in the water, and the water being our own culture, and our culture is basically already exploiting our energy and our emotions to get us to act and move in certain ways. So we intuitively take on that whole ideology, and think that that's the way to be successful. I'm just really good at it and you're a hater, you know. This is just how the world works. We pimp each other, you know. I use these words to string them in a way that makes you pull and jive and go in certain things. And if I do that really, really well, then you know, I'm the cream of the crop, you know. But you're at the cream of the crop of a satanic type of exploitative circumstance, because, well, let's just look at, like, the money is what you're working for, and so you're using patterns of these things in order to pull them out of somebody else, so that people feel separated, or so there's a way of exploiting that whole energy to, and then we reward that, and then, you know, people will look at certain, like, music stars, and you'll hear, like, all they talk about is, from on certain levels, is basically just you know, the worst parts of humanity. You know, and it's super dumbed down, and that's because of the society that we live in, and they create contracts to where these patterns are bound. You know, they say, well, we'll give you this, but you have to act like that. And, like, that's how our whole society works. There's no way to change that. You can exit it, but if you're going to engage in corporate Babylon, you better have your driver's license, and you better have your social security card. You know, they have multiple levels of these things that they want you to acknowledge that you're this type of person, that this is who you are. And so when you take that on, that is black magic. You know, that's not actually who you are. But once you say that's who you are, then you consent to their whole game. And so, well, their whole game is to exploit the fuck out of that weakness, you know. And so, well, it should bring about the greater in all of us as we're getting wiser to how we're being exploited. But they want to keep us in perpetual ignorance, because to wake up is to put them out of business. And so that's why marketing is such a big thing. That's why, you know, all these things are put in, these institutions are put in place in order to keep you profoundly ignorant, you know. And to step outside of that paradigm is to die. You have to let go of these frames of who you think you are and what you think life is. But that was all taught to you. That was all told to you, and you don't even remember what they are anymore. They're so deeply embedded that we walk around and are like constant contradictions. It's crazy, crazy, crazy. I was trying to think, like, what are some that just, like, stand out super duper in people's face, and, like, there's no way you could ignore this, but it happened every day. And, like, for one of them is, like, the biggest one that well, there's a few of them, but one that stands out profoundly to me is war. And so, like, what's this pro side? I could give a fuck what side. You're pro-war. You're saying that it's okay to go fucking kill people. But you're a Christian, or you're Muslim, or you're Buddhist, or you're, you know, whatever. Do you not see that that's a complete contradiction? That we're talking about all our brotherhood is one, and yet you're saying, yeah, but kill them motherfuckers? There's no excuse for this. But that's what I'm trying to use this as one example, as how they get us out of our body. Get you jumping and moving and contradicting yourself. You know, like, here you are, they pulled on your emotions to where you'll say, you know what, war is justifiable. Well, then that's what you said, right? You see how that works? And now a bunch of people are thinking like that. You know, the worldwide is thinking like that. And we wonder, I'm growing up all my whole life, why is there still wars in these same areas across the world? Like, we ain't got it yet? Well, that's why. You know, we don't even understand that we are the contradiction. You know, we're not willing to look at ourselves. We justify our own behavior, you know, and say that, look, hey, whatever, look, everybody's on the path. I'm on the path. Ain't nobody, I haven't arrived. But at the same time, let's call a spade a spade. You know, how the fuck are we gonna find bearing? So, yeah, you've got these contracts through money, through these fake papers with dead presidents on them, you know, that, you know, it's all based on debt and death, and we don't understand these things, you know, but it's because it's been sold to us time, and then our parents have been sold into this. We've been sold into slavery. Unknowingly, unwittingly, you know, but that's no excuse. You know, if we were really wanting to get to the solution of the bigger issues that we see in the world, we would push forward. We would dig a little deeper. We would try to see what our part is in it, and try. And then, you know, once you start to really pull that apart, you know, it's fairly simple to see what's going on. It's that we've lost touch with our divine nature, you know, because we're scared of death, you know. That's the satanic dream that they're selling us, though, that this is it, this is your one chance, this is, you know, you are your body, and boy, it's not shame that you're not looking like one of these people and you don't look like that, and all this separation. And you know, well, you might as well just engage from what you can while you can, you know, because it's gone tomorrow. What, this world is fucking miserable. All lies. Well, it's nothing but suffering, meaningless suffering. All lies. No, there's purpose. There's reason. This pain is a definite sign that there's purpose. You know, but we have to see it in the right terms. If we're not wanting to let go of the shit that we think gives us some kind of satisfaction, but it's harmful to ourselves, well, then we're going to continually feel the pain. And our resentment shouldn't compound because now we're in more pain. It should be a symbol, a sign that says, hey, maybe you should adjust the way you see things. Maybe you don't see it quite right, you know? Like, okay, maybe there's something there that you got. I'm not expecting you to give up the whole fucking enchilada all at once, but can we take one fucking thing, one thing that's an obvious contradiction in your life, very stands out, super obvious, and just, or even a small one, whatever. If that's too big, fine. Can't work on it right now. It's just too much. Not going to do. Fine. Let's work on something smaller. You know, but something. I mean, we can't just continually get up every day and do the same patterns that we're bound to by these soul contracts and wonder why we can't find the promised land. We can't find ourselves. We've bound ourselves to this fucking jinn, you know, this antichrist. That's what it is, you know, false prophet. For the wrong reasons, you know. It's not that we shouldn't look for something better and something that we can acquire, but it should be for the right reasons, so that we continue to. And if that means that we've got to harm or bring some detriment to our brethren in order to achieve the goal, whatever the fucking goal is, it's the wrong thing. It's the wrong way. There is always a way for us to move towards reconciliation. You know, who here has not sinned? You know, who here has not come up short? You know, well, then you've got no, we should have took you out a long time ago. Well, no, it's just part of being human. But we need to edify each other, in a loving way, and say that is not cool. Not cool, and that's something that oppresses and something that strips people, and that belongs in that camp over there. And we don't do things like that. If that's what they do, let them do it then. Whatever. They go low, we go higher, and that's just how it's going to be. That's the true death. That's when you've said, look, doesn't matter what you do to me in this body or whatever. There's a part of me that you can't touch. You do not own. That is our eternal soul and spirit. And you've encased that in this gross body. It's not that we should despise this body. We should use it as like a vehicle, just like the car that I'm using to get work done today. But come on, let's keep it in perspective. Like, this is not the totality of who we are. And if we think like that, even us on daily basis think that that's shallow. But we don't think too much further past that. Why don't we push it a little bit more? What does that mean then? If we think that's shallow. Because it is. Right? Does anybody want to be with somebody that just thinks on those terms? No. But yet we don't ask ourselves, what does that mean? Is there an actual soul underneath there? So, anyways, a brand new day, full potential, despite what my outer eyes may say, that we're just heading down these consistent, just another fucking, here we go again, Groundhog Day. It don't have to be. It don't have to be. If I'm willing to let go of all the bullshit, the false things that I teach myself, and how do I do that? How do I practically do that? Through our emotions, through our heart. That's why we start to move towards Christ in our emotions, through our heart, not through our mind. Because in our emotions, we know when something hurts, we know when something's off. Cool, start there. What is that? And start looking at what is. So this is a difficult process if you're not willing to see how, or this is how it was put to me, what's within your hula hoop and what's not. So there's a formula that I use in order to get past the ego to see this. And this is basically understanding that resentment is attached to fear. And fear is attached to desire. We don't want to admit our true desires because we've been told that they're improper. So, and we've adopted those ideas, so we don't want to, even though down below we feel differently, we don't want to admit it to ourselves. And so how do we unravel it? How do we uncover that? So when we have an emotional circumstances that come about, we can point out these resentments that pop up because they're fairly easy to point out. Everybody knows how to point at somebody and go, that's the problem. Fine. So we start there. I'm resentful at blank because I have fear of blank. Right? We're attaching the resentment to the fear. Here's the key. When you get to the second part, you can put anything you want to in the first part. I'm resentful at whoever the fuck. Right? Put whoever you want to. Second part, because I have fear that you have to bring it home. It's something to do with my insecurity. I don't have any control over them. Okay? So, yeah, maybe I started there. I'm upset at this guy. I used to work a lot. Here, for an example. I'm pissed off at my boss because I think because I'm afraid that he's an asshole. No. I'm pissed off at my boss because I'm afraid that I don't meet the mark. Somehow. Then we go to the next one. Well, I'm really resentful at myself because I'm realizing that I missed the mark. How do I miss the mark? I'm afraid that I don't know how to do this specific or that specific. So we start getting, and you just keep doing that until it just pours out. Get it all out there. It's all on paper. Now we can look at it. You come back and you start seeing the patterns. Seeing where was I at? So I'm not concerned with the other people. It can be useful if you want to manipulate people, but that's not what we're trying to do here. What we're trying to do is figure out where I fucked up, and so how I can change my insecurities by taking action to build security. So in the first example where I said that I'm insecure about my job because I don't have the skills, then what skills would that be? Label that. Okay. What could I do with in my current day? Because then you come back over this and you look at every single one and address every single one and say, what could I do to address that insecurity? And then you have a list of things that you could do. Then you prioritize that in a way that you can address it practically. And you just keep doing that I call it inventory process. And then when you're walking it out in the next day, that's amends. We're stepping into a different potential. We're addressing the things that we've already pointed out don't work for us. They actually are counterproductive. So practical tools, how to unravel the black magic that has been put on you, the spells that continually keep us in perpetual hell. You are eternal. It's time to be free. Love y'all.